Hey, I'm Dominic D'Angelo, and it's a Terry Funk Friday, and it's Rumor and Innuendo. I'm happy to be here today with Robert Karpelis, WE Creative _ish. It's ad-free shows and all that malarkey. Robert, how are you? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Little discombobulated on my end today. I got both kids home. My son finished school yesterday, which is crazy that his school started so early. My daughter's doesn't finish till next week, but this morning we got to take a trip to the doctor. Strep throat.
Isn't that fun?
It's a blast. So if I'm pulled away at any moment for any point in time, it's most likely because I'm doing the second most important job I have, which is being a loving, caring father. The first most important job I have, obviously, is talking pro wrestling with you guys. I've got my priorities straight.
You sound just like a pro wrestler, Robert.
Well, you know something, brother. Yeah, God forbid I wind up like one of those pro wrestling parents. Had some interesting conversations with some wrestlers in the past who've talked about their children with me, some of whom went on to become wrestlers themselves. So not going to divulge, but if you look at the window of time that I was at WWE and who was on the writing staff, may align a little bit, and I will neither confirm nor deny. That's all rumor and innuendo. But we've got a stacked show today. Peek behind the curtain. I love stealing Conrad's term. It's a smaller peek than what he has to do. But we've had a number of stories over the course of the week that just due to stuff popping up, we haven't gotten a chance to get to. So we're going to get to dig into some of those interesting stories. But the Southern District of New York chose to not play along. And it's a rough week for WWE Hall of Famers, or should be Hall of Famers, and the New York criminal justice system.
Right, New York the New York court system has had a busy week. But we are here to talk about Mr. Vince McMahon. And sure enough, Robert, you mentioned it, Bloomberg. They reported it first. Janelle Grant agreed to pause her lawsuit at the request of the Justice Department as the feds conduct their own investigation of the Vince McMahon lawsuit. A quote from the attorney of Grant, Ann Callis, said, Miss Grant has consented to the request by the U.S. Attorney for Southern District of New York to stay her case against Mr. McMahon, WD, and Mr. Laurinaitis pursuant to a pending non-public investigation. And we will cooperate with all appropriate next steps. So, Robert, we talked about this on your other show, Working Stiff, a little bit, but you happen to be an attorney, and this is not good news for Vince McMahon, correct?
So, like anything else in the legal world, the answer is it depends. If the Southern District of New York is pursuing charges against Vince for both the WWE for both the rape allegations and the sex trafficking, then they're taking what was presented in Ms. Grant's filing seriously, and they're going to look into it on the chance that they need to file criminal charges against Vince McMahon. They do not take these investigations lightly. They don't engage in them unless there is we'll boil it down to layman's terms. There's smoke. If there's smoke, there's fire. Theoretically, potentially, they're not going to waste taxpayer money. They're not going to waste their limited resources to go and pursue something unless they think there is something going on. I think it was a tweet that was shared in our group, which is very accurate. And I do have some folks that I know have worked in the Southern District of New York before, so I've heard these numbers previously. But the Southern District of New York has filed a notice of appearance for Vince McMahon and Janelle Grant, which means not only are they investigating it, but they want to bring both these parties in and they want to depose them. They want to get to the bottom of this information. They want to ask questions on the record that they can use for their investigation. This usually doesn't happen unless the SDNY is confident they can convict someone. SDNY has a 95% conviction rate. So everyone is presumed innocent. That is what you are entitled to as a United States citizen. It is a very high threshold because most of these attorneys are judged on their win-loss record. Mm-hmm. Your success, your ability to run for higher office, your ability to run for this if you want to go be a congressman, a governor, U.S. attorney general, whatever that may be, they're going to go look to your record. So you're not going to go chase people unless you think you have a pretty good chance of winning. And right now, this is just bringing everybody in and having those conversations. We know what Janelle Grant has alleged has occurred. We've seen some glimmers of what Vince McMahon's defense is, primarily the consensual nature of the relationship, the fact that he's turned over love letters and said that there are other text messages that show her underlying intent. This could get very bad very quickly for Vince, more so than the Janelle Grant case itself. So that would have just cost him money. This could cost him his freedom.
If you were WWE, how would you handle this moving forward? They're already separated themselves a great deal from Vince, obviously, washed them from a lot of their product and everything. But is there further steps you would take if you were WWE, Triple H, or TKO?
So the advice that you always want to give your client when you're talking to them is that they should be as forthright and honest as possible. Mm-hmm. They most likely they are talking to whoever the counsel is that are representing them, and they are disclosing everything that they think may come to light. Because the worst thing that can happen is you hold something back from your own attorney who's unable to process a defense for you. So they are going to unearth all the skeletons. They're going to show their attorney, here's everything that we think may come out of this. Here's what our position is in this matter, and go and defend us. My guess is they've already been doing that based on the Janelle Grant lawsuit. Their defenses are going to be these were the actions of Vince McMahon. These were the actions of John Laurinaitis. This was not the actions of the overall company. And hope that the dam doesn't burst. Hope that there's not other charges, that there's another smoking gun that exists somewhere. But this is sort of the risk that they were taking by knowing what Vince was accused of and allowing him to stick around.
Yeah. It's kind of telling, too. You think he got voted out unanimously, too, at first, and then he brought himself back in.
Well, they had to keep him around in order to facilitate the TKO sale. Mm-hmm. In order to facilitate this sale to Endeavor, this merger, because Wall Street is not overly sophisticated. They do not understand. They understand things at a very high, very surprisingly cursory level. So if you're listening to this thinking, well, these Wall Street insiders are a lot smarter than I am, they're not. They when they hear WWE, they think probably three things. They think WrestleMania is a pretty marketable global name. They think Hulk Hogan, even in 2024, because that was the big name of the 80s. And they think Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to present the sale of a company and Vince McMahon is not part of it, there's a concern that he was going to challenge it, that you were not buying the totality of the property. So they needed to keep Vince around. And it's kind of like you're keeping a cobra, and you have to hope that it doesn't bite you. And they got bit, but you hate to think the worst of everybody, but this is the wrestling world. They knew what was coming. None of this was a surprise. On Working Stiff, which dropped earlier today, myself and Dan St. Germain, we talked about our Mount Rushmore of fallen wrestlers, or fallen idols within wrestling. And when talking about Vince, it was like the one recurring theme was nobody was surprised about the allegations or charges brought against him. We all kind of knew the devil we were dancing with. And that's what's being brought up right now by the Southern District of New York. It's a big, flashy name to go after. Mm-hmm. After, yesterday, the New York court system found Donald Trump guilty on 34 of the 34 felony counts that they brought up against him. It's how people make their bones. This is how people make their name and reputation. They are using the Ric Flair adage, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And if they can score victories over Trump and Vince, that goes a long way.
I'm just happy Billy Corgan's in the clear with all this stuff.
Speaking of Mr. William Corgan, this is a mid-show plug. Seamless transition. If you are a fan of Working Stiff and you are one of our Patreon members, myself, Dan St. Germain, and Scott Chaplin will be watching the first episode of Billy Corgan's reality show on the CW app. I have it pulled up right here. Billy Corgan's Adventures in Carneyland. You will get our thoughts on the first episode if you are a Patreon subscriber for Working Stiff. So the months and months and months of talking about Billy and the CW is going to lead to me actually having to sit through some of his programming. So the joke is on me, Dom. But we got a lot of other stuff to cover here today.
Yes, we do. Not a whole lot when it comes to SmackDown this Friday. Not a lot advertised, to be honest. All they have is, I believe, Nia Jax, Queen of the Ring coronation ceremony, and Cody Rhodes is to appear.
Yes, but that's all you got. You're coming off of King and Queen of the Ring. You're moving to Clash at the Castle. At the end of King and Queen of the Ring, Cody Rhodes was triumphant over Logan Paul in a decisive victory. There were no questions. There's no opening for a rematch. There's no nothing. It is that book is closed. And unless Logan Paul has a pet dinosaur for Cody to fight on this episode, I don't see any way in which that's going to get extended. So we either are setting up a challenger for Cody for Clash at the Castle, or there is the possibility that Gunther shows up to tease this idea that he can challenge either champion. They have not really set the rules fully. We're thinking he's going after the Raw champion. He could show up just to tease what's going on with Cody, to tease something at SummerSlam. But I don't see that necessarily happening. I think it's going to wind up staying with the Raw brand. Gunther is the face of that. So Cody will need a new challenger. A couple different options of people they may go after. There's no one that leaps off the page as being a legitimate, like, hey, this guy can beat Cody. So you need something for Clash of the Castle to make the audience happy. You could quickly elevate Nakamura again, which we've seen done before. I don't know that lights the world on fire or anything. There's Santos Escobar, who's a dark horse that you can try to heat up as someone that Cody can go ahead and vanquish. You could do a Carmelo Hayes rematch. I'd be hesitant to go that quickly with him, but it is always possible. Some people have talked about the idea of it being, maybe Randy Orton, a babyface match. I don't love that idea. There is always, the Bloodline.
Yeah.
There's Solo, but that would again be a very short window of time.
Right.
So,
yeah.
We'll see. I would not be mad at an AJ Styles rematch.
No, I wouldn't hate that either.
But, we'll get further clarity in terms of what's going on with Cody. And for Nia, she's got to build to SummerSlam, where she'll face Bayley. And that will most likely lead to them going back and forth. And then you need someone for Nia to beat. And that's why you keep a Naomi on the roster as Bayley's friend who can get beaten.
Yeah, yeah.
You also need a challenger for Bayley for Clash at the Castle. So I've pontificated before that this is where you use a Natalya and have her do a title versus career, but we'll see.
Yeah, that you make the stakes there. I almost feel like for Cody, they do need somebody to they need a surprise almost at this juncture to do something this quick with a quick turnover with, you want it to these other stories to kind of build from a Randy Orton or from a Solo Sikoa. You want these things to develop for Cody because those are fascinating, engaging month-line storylines you can play into. So, I almost feel like you need to kind of shock the fans and bring in somebody unexpected for him to face.
It's a possibility. Again, Clash at the Castle is going to sell on its own merits.
Absolutely, yeah.
You're getting an audience there in Scotland that's going to be a rabid fan base. They're just excited to see WWE action. They know that Drew McIntyre is main eventing. It's clear that we're getting to what looks like a Sheamus one-on-one match with Ludwig Kaiser. We're going to probably get some sort of Liv Morgan. I would probably guess Liv Morgan, Lyra Valkyria.
Yeah.
Tim M suggested here Brock Lesnar. Not after the Southern District of New York are we getting Brock.
Yeah,
that's a great thought, but I don't see it happening. Cody's in a very strange place right now because a lot of the WWE is in a strange place.
Mm-hmm.
You look at who they had coming off of WrestleMania and where we are now, and the names, the list of people that they've lost since WrestleMania is staggering.
It's a lot.
Roman Reigns not on TV anymore. Rock not on TV anymore. Punk on the shelf injured. Drew has been on the shelf injured. Rhea Ripley on the shelf injured. Dominic Mysterio on the shelf injured. Jimmy Uso taken off of TV.
Seth Rollins.
Seth Rollins off television. Asuka off television. It's just insane how they really haven't skipped a beat. And coming off Mania with 2 new world champions, a new Intercontinental champion, and a U.S. champion who doesn't appear regularly, plus 2 new tag titles.
Right.
There are so many moving pieces going on at once right now for the WWE to try and keep straight. And they really haven't dropped the ball too significantly. And there was that one Raw that I was not a fan of. SmackDown has overall been a very entertaining, very watchable show. I'll be really curious to see where they go tonight on this episode. They have options. I'm sure they're going to think these through, and it'll be kind of unique to see what we ultimately wind up getting. But I mean, there's also Andrade floating around out there.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah, he's another guy.
People would not be terribly offended if it's if you do a battle royal, which I don't love them, and they're kind of a cheat, but it's something. It's better than a 17-week tournament.
Yep.
And if you do have an Andrade win the tournament as a surprise, or AJ overcome everybody and win it for a rematch, or LA Knight, let's pretend I didn't say that. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's the one to think about there. Something else to think about. Has Tony Khan been booking on the fly?
Yes. End of segment.
According to Brian Alvarez on the Figure 4 online wrestling online forums, forums. They're still a thing, Robert. I thought they were gone with the ways of Kazaa and stuff like that.
Kazaa. You would never admit to using something like Kazaa or LimeWire.
Never.
To illegally procure music.
No, not whatsoever.
That is lunacy. I don't even know what it is. I don't even know how I knew what it was. It's just crazy. Baffling. Anyway. Never heard of it. Anyway, Tony Khan, who 100% has a PW Torrents account, or Extreme Wrestling Torrents. That was the other one.
Yes, Brian Alvarez said on the forums, Tony switched the script on AEW Double or Nothing.
Your voice is too low for doing an Alvarez.
I can't do an impression.
I know. I won't make people subject to that.
Most people not.
Hey, what are they doing with that?
Most people not.
I love Brian. I did his show before.
I interviewed him once. I liked him a lot.
I don't care about you interviewing him. I was on Observer many years ago.
All right, most people not. Just
Sorry, I'm not letting you finish this. I'm just going to see how many times I can keep interrupting you, because I know that you want to finish. And guys, if you want to finish, may we recommend our friends at Blue Chew. This episode is sponsored by Blue Chew. Let's talk about sex. Guys, remember the days when you were always ready to go? Now you can increase your performance and get that extra confidence in bed. Visit BlueChew.com. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. The process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part, it's all done online. No visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. If you're at your computer and you're trying to go to the Figure 4 forums, you got a way better use of your laptop by going to BlueChew.com, because Blue Chew wants to help you have better sex. Discover your options at BlueChew.com. Chew it and do it. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code RUMOR at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com, promo code RUMOR to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring this edition of Rumor and Innuendo.
Thank you, Blue Chew. And
there's a comment here from Christopher Ray that says, you have to scream a little. That's to do the Alvarez impression. But if you want your gal screaming, BlueChew.com, promo code RUMOR.
You know it. Yes. So Brian continued. Most people, not just the wrestlers, have no idea what they're doing until the day of the show, and sometimes not until an hour or so before the show. People are flown to towns and given nothing to do. Others are begged the day before the show to please get to the town so they can do something last minute. Now, Robert, I will say this is not a new notion with Tony Khan. Back All Out Weekend, I overheard two AEW wrestlers talking about if they're booked for that collision, that very collision where CM, right before that, they announced CM Punk got fired. And neither knew what they were doing that night. So, and one wrestler happened to say, well, that's AEW. So this is not a new notion with AEW. This stuff is just coming to light a little bit more. And it's a huge issue with what we see on weekly television, obviously, I think.
So it's an inexcusable problem in a couple of ways. Number one, with the WWE, this used to be guilty of the Vince McMahon syndrome, that he decides to rip up the show last minute and change everything.
Yep.
I explained on one of the previous episodes of Rumor and Innuendo, available in the archive on iTunes, Spotify, and the like, sort of what the WWE writing process looked like. And you would map things out and go over it over and over. And yeah, Vince is going to get a wild hair up his ass. Tony is the plenary authority. He is the guy who holds the pencil. He's the guy who's booking what this is on a day-to-day, weekly, monthly, whatever basis. So it's inexcusable that there's this sort of rewrite and rip up. It's not like Vince is sitting on day one mapping everything out. He trusts his writing team to do that, and then he tries to guide us however he sees fit. When Tony is the Paul Heyman, the guy who has the pencil and could do whatever he wants with it, you can't keep rewriting stuff. You should have things mapped out over the course of the weeks and months using the grid system that most bookers will use. Are there going to be last minute changes? Yes. But if you're bringing someone to TV, you're spending money on flying them out there. You're putting them up in a hotel. You're taking them away from their family. You need to use them. They can't just fly out there and sit in catering and wonder and worry. And when I remember when I was backstage at a Dynamite, and I was talking to some folks, they had no clue what they were doing. And some of them got told 2-3 different things over the course of an hour. It went from I'm just taking promotional stills to I'm working a match to I'm part of a segment to I'm just taking promotional stills to my match is happening, but it's not happening on Dynamite. It's happening after Dynamite when they tape the Ring of Honor taping to I'm just doing promotional stills. And then while doing promotional stills, getting pulled and being told, we need you for this Dynamite segment right now. That is an inordinate amount of changes for any one talent. And when talents don't feel like there's something set in stone, they don't feel appreciated and they don't have a chance to really get prepared and do their best work. You want to give wrestlers time to think through the logic of the matches. You want them to understand what it is that they're doing out there, what they're trying to accomplish to further a storyline. And more importantly, that what's going on is so valued that they need to put forth their best effort. If it's a last minute, hey, we're just going to throw you two out there, are you really giving your best for it? Probably not. And when they joke about budget and budgetary constraints, you need to be a lot more conscientious that you can't be calling guys up on a Tuesday and saying, we need you for TV Wednesday.
Right.
He's not this delicate genius who comes up with brilliant ideas in the middle of the night and then they pay off in remarkable television. You're like, well, we just have to cater to those whims. It's a guy who just doesn't fully understand how to properly run TV. And these stories are continuing to come out because people backstage are not happy. And they don't have the same structure that the WWE does, where most talent knows I'm going to be on the road. I'm going to be needed for Raw or SmackDown. And we have a list of who's wrestling on the show, who's featured on the show, who's not represented. And if someone's not represented on the show at all, which means they're not in a segment, they're not wrestling, we don't need them for anything, we're not going to bring him to TV. That's the way that these things work.
And if Tony Khan looks at WWE as competition, not that they really are, but if that's the way he looks at it, you would want to be above board on everything that you do when it comes to logistics, when it comes to booking stuff, when it comes to promoting your stars, everything like that. And last week we had that conference call where Meltzer asked him what has he learned over the 5 years or what mistakes would he have changed and fixed. And he credited himself as a historian of the business and learning from history and learning from the mistakes. Here he's doing a lot of this stuff Vince McMahon was heavily criticized, and even some more mistakes that Vince McMahon wasn't about. So from a booking perspective, obviously, not from a
Yeah,
sports
no, I,
network.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
You're a different co-host.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate because I think part of it, I'm willing to admit to it, and I'm sure some of the other folks that you work with are willing to admit to it. There is a little bit of jealousy where
Mhm.
we look at what Tony has. You have the piggy bank, you have the roster, you hold the pencil, you don't answer to anybody. Any booker worth his salt or her salt, that's their dream.
Right.
I caught a little bit of your straight talk with the boss
Mhm.
yesterday with Greg Gagne and Magnum TA, and I was listening to Greg talking about the way that Tony runs things versus the way that Vern would run things. And at one point, like you asked Magnum, like, who on the WWE roster would you want to have? He's like, I'd want the whole roster. I feel that way about most of the AEW roster. I
Sure.
feel like you have all the tools in place, and it is very difficult to watch that. And some of these tools that I've had in my own toolbox before, a lot of the guys that we had at the start of MLW are currently in AEW. So I know what they're capable of in the ring, promos, storylines, and how they can and should be used versus sometimes how they are used. You get a little frustrated, and it leads to people being a little overly critical. And that's going to happen in the business no matter what. But the way that the ratings have panned out, the way that talent who have left have talked about their time in AEW, it's just not coming across favorably, and it's very frustrating because you really had a chance to turn things around.
Yes, I think and we're seeing it unfold on television on a weekly basis, and
You are, and right now the only reason why somebody would jump ship, for lack of a better term, is money,
yeah, that's
not
it.
creative freedom. There were lots of talents who left WWE because they desperately wanted creative freedom. Andrade, Miro, Malachi Black, Buddy Murphy, all these guys felt handcuffed by what was going on in the WWE. They wanted to go elsewhere. They wanted to get a chance to spread their wings and show what they can do. Hasn't worked out. I think, and there wasn't there a Soraya story that was going around?
Yes, so I actually wrote about this in the same SE Scoops article that I wrote about. That was Soraya was booked to go against Mariah May on this week's Dynamite, this previous Wednesday's Dynamite, and was
Okay.
removed. It was removed, and Soraya made a tweet about like I'm gonna start speaking my mind more or something. She made a tweet and something like that, and they got deleted. Now I believe that that match is now scheduled for next week. So it really does speak to what the reports have been. So
The inmates trying to run the asylum because they're getting frustrated over how they're being treated. You need your roster to remain happy and stay motivated, and you have some folks that are there who are going to be very vocal about how they're being booked and handled.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think you need that to an extent. You need, but it's almost like they're yelling into a vacuum because you don't see this come to fruition. Like it's like if you're looking at WWE again, that locker room seems pretty darn good right now. That seems like a pretty good team effort. This year seems like they want to be a team, but there's not a good coach that's leading them and putting them in the right direction of how to get a good weekly television product on. It's
Well,
just
you look at who's at top, who's at the top, and who's in control, and that is very much the Young Bucks. And for a long time, you had Jack Perry needling CM Punk while he was there. The Bucks did not seem to want Punk there. That was not much of a secret. These things bubbled over. Hangman didn't want Punk there, and you had a guy like Jack Perry just constantly chipping away and chipping and chipping at CM Punk, leading to Punk eventually being gone and now making a lot of money on the other channel. And now you see Jack Perry being rewarded for that behavior as being pushed as a tippy top guy in their top stable. You see the Trent Orange Cassidy feud continuing because Orange Cassidy obviously curries favor with Tony and the Bucks, and Trent is his friend, and Trent is incredibly talented, but is he really the next guy who should be part of the Don Callis family? It's going to lean into that, and we saw that a lot with WCW when it was Nash and those guys having say over who got pushed, or Hogan and his guys having say of who got pushed, and it was, hey, let's force out your talented wrestlers, and we're going to push Brutus the Barber Beefcake, and we're going to bring in the Nasty Boys, and we're going to bring in Jimmy Hart, and hey, there's not enough money here for a Steve Austin or a Paul Heyman. It's just you guy says he looks at history. You're seeing it occur here. Ethan Page showing up on NXT when they had him in AEW for probably not a significant amount of money. I don't think he was, tipping the scales over 7 figures.
Yeah.
And you could have been using him to enhance your show, and now he's getting used elsewhere, which sounds far dirtier than it should. But hey, it's a Friday. This is the best way to wrap up your week. But if you're thinking, I could use a little bit more Dominic D'Angelo in my life, where else can the fine folks find you?
Heck yeah. You can find me at rvdtv.com. We just recorded a new episode last night. We actually had wrestler Ben McCoy from Wisconsin Frontline Wrestling. He's a veteran of the Afghanistan War and tells his story. And we go really deep into the thought process of his journey there, being an independent wrestler, running his own promotion, and what he's doing it for. He's doing it for a great cause, helping veterans, helping Salvation Army, everything. Every show that he does contributes to that. So really, really cool, different kind of conversation. Check it out. That'll be available on Monday at 4:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on rvdtv.com. And then you can also check out, like Robert said, Straight Talk with the Boss, Greg Gagne, Magnum TA. We cover donning the crimson mask, getting blood, getting color, all that stuff, whatever you want to say. It's a good episode. We have a lot of fun on there. So go to fourhorsemannetwork.com. You can check that out right now on fourhorsemannetwork.com. Robert, working stiff. Good stuff. We promoted some stuff already, but let's hear it again, huh?
Here's the beauty of working stiff here, guys. So we were recording the show yesterday, and in the middle of the show was when the Vince news broke. But we did the Mount Rushmore of wrestlers who've ruined their legacy. We also talked about both Dynamite and Double or Nothing. The one thing we did not get a chance to talk about yesterday, but will come up on the Patreon where we also review a Billy and the CW show, is on the Rene Dupree podcast. Missy Hyatt gave us the greatest gift that anybody could possibly give, where she revealed that for 2 years, she was engaged in a relationship with Jim Ross after his wife Jan passed away, and that Jim rocked her world. The Working Stiff group chat has been on fire. None of that can be repeated here on Rumor and Innuendo.
Nope.
Almost all of that will get brought up on the Working Stiff Patreon this weekend. But Missy, thank you. So on behalf of the smiling a little too broad there, Dominic D'Angelo, I'm Robert Karpolis. Best of luck in your future endeavors.
Ooh, I'm ready for a cigarette and a slobber